With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give the fan favorite everywhere belt bag, the real gift is... And when the ultra-soothing Rest Feel slides are the gift, you're really giving them... This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give little luxuries that go beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, it's an open line Friday here on the Eric Erickson Show, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, it is Eric Erickson here across the nation. By the way, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, is coming to the gathering. And those of you out in Tulsa on KRMG, we've invited your state school superintendent and governor. We're hoping to get them there. I know Kevin Hearn, your congressman, is going to be at the gathering. If you text the word engage to 33777, you can still get tickets. We are starting to get to the sellout point, so you need to go on and get tickets. Text engage to 33777. And you can make that happen. Now, the headline of the day, this is the big breaking news, and of course it's driving the left insane, misstating what's going on. The Supreme Court has ruled 6-3 that the bump stock ban is unconstitutional. Now, for those of you freaking out about this, you really should not freak out about this, because what the left is saying is really disproportionate to the truth of the matter. The case is Cargill is the name of it, is it not? Yeah, Cargill. And Merrick Garland, petitioner on behalf, yes, the Cargill case. Justice Thomas wrote the decision. This is a very straightforward statutory decision. Let me just read you from the beginning from Clarence Thomas, who writes in an easy-to-understand way. Congress has long restricted access to machine guns, a category of firearms defined by the ability to shoot automatically more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. Semi-automatic firearms, which require shooters to re-engage the trigger for every shot, are not machine guns. This case asks whether a bump stock, an accessory for a semi-automatic rifle that allows the shooter to rapidly re-engage the trigger and therefore achieve a higher rate of fire, converts the rifle into a machine gun. We hold that it does not. Under the National Firearms Act of 1934, a machine gun is any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. The statutory definition also includes, quote, any part designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun. With a machine gun, a shooter can fire multiple times or even continuously by engaging the trigger only once under the statutory definition. This capability distinguishes a machine gun from a semi-automatic firearm. With a semi-automatic firearm, the shooter can fire only one time by engaging the trigger. The shooter must release and re-engage the trigger to fire another shot. Machine guns can ordinarily achieve higher rates of fire than semi-automatic firearms because the shooter does not need to release and re-engage the trigger between multiple shots. Shooters have devised techniques for firing semi-automatic firearms at rates approaching those of some machine guns. One technique is called bump firing. A shooter who bump fires a rifle uses the firearm's recoil to help rapidly manipulate the trigger. The shooter allows the recoil from one shot to push the whole firearm backwards. As the rifle slides back and away from the shooter's stationary trigger finger, the trigger is released and reset for the next shot. Simultaneously, the shooter uses his non-trigger hand to maintain forward pressure on the rifle's front grip. The forward pressure counteracts the recoil and causes the firearm to move forward and bump into the shooter's trigger finger. This bump re-engages the trigger and causes another shot to fire, and so on. Bump firing is a balancing act. The shooter must maintain enough forward pressure to ensure that he will bump the trigger with sufficient force to re-engage it. But if the shooter applies too much forward pressure, the rifle will not slide back far enough to allow the trigger to reset. The right balance produces a reciprocating motion that permits the shooter to repeatedly engage and release the trigger in rapid succession. Although bump firing does not require any additional equipment, there are accessories designed to make the technology easier. A bump stock is one such accessory. It replaces a semi-automatic rifle stock, the back part of the rifle that rests on the shoulder, with a plastic casing that allows every other part of the rifle to slide back and forth. This casing helps manage the back and forth motion required for bump firing. A bump stock also has a ledge to keep the shooter's trigger finger stationary. A bump stock does not alter the basic mechanisms of bump firing. As with any semi-automatic firearm, the trigger still must be released and re-engaged to fire each additional shot. The ATF. Again, I'm reading from the Supreme Court's decision. Easy to understand if you read the decision instead of just listening to the hysterics. For many years, the ATF took the position that semi-automatic rifles equipped with bump stocks were not machine guns under the statute. On more than 10 separate occasions over several administrations, ATF consistently concluded that rifles equipped with bump stocks cannot automatically fire more than one shot with a single function of the trigger. In April 2017, for example, ATF explained that a rifle equipped with a bump stock does not operate automatically because forward pressure must be applied with the support hand to the forward handgun. And because the shooter slides the rifle forward in the stock to fire each round, each successive shot fires with a single trigger function. ATF reversed course in response to a mass shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. In October 2017, a gunman fired on a crowd attending an outdoor music festival in Las Vegas, killing 58 people and wounding over 500. The gunman equipped his weapons with bump stocks, which allowed him to fire hundreds of rounds in a matter of minutes. This tragedy created tremendous political pressure to outlaw bump stocks. Within days, members of Congress proposed bills to ban bump stocks and other devices designed to accelerate the rate of fire of semi-automatic weapons. None of the bills became law. While the first wave of bills was pending, ATF began considering whether to reinterpret the federal statute's definition of a machine gun to include bump stocks. It proposed a rule that would amend its regulations to clarify that bump stocks are machine guns. ATF's about-face drew criticism from some observers, including those agreed that bump stocks should be banned. Senator Dianne Feinstein, for example, warned that ATF lacked statutory authority to prohibit bump stocks, explaining that the proposed regulation hinged on a dubious analysis and that the gun lobby and manufacturers would have a field day with ATF's reasoning in court. But ATF changed its mind and reinterpreted bump stocks. And the Supreme Court says you can't do that. This is actually a good case for freedom. Now listen, I understand that some of you are opposed to bump stocks, and I understand you think they should be banned. But the problem here is that for a decade, the ATF said these are not machine guns because the statute says a machine gun is a gun that will release multiple bullets with a single pull of the trigger. A bump stock, as Clarence Thomas notes, doesn't do that. It just makes it easier to rapidly pull the trigger repeatedly. That statutorily, definitionally, is not a machine gun, and the ATF for a decade said as much. But after the Las Vegas shooting, the ATF changed its mind, and millions of Americans who owned guns, bump stocks, because the ATF said they were legal, were suddenly felons. and had to surrender them to the government with no compensation for the government to hand in the things they purchased that were perfectly legal. This is Sam Alito, radical insurrectionist Sam Alito. Just listen to this. The horrible shooting spree in Las Vegas in 2017 did not change the statutory text or its definition in 26 U.S.C. 5845B. That event demonstrated that a semi-automatic rifle with a bump stock can have the same lethal effect as a machine gun, and it strengthened the case for amending the legislation. But an event that highlights the need to amend a law does not itself change the law's meaning. There is a simple remedy for the disparate treatment of bump stocks and machine guns. Congress can amend the law, and perhaps would have done so already if the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives had stuck with its earlier interpretation. Now that the situation is clear, Congress can act. That's his entire concurrence. And he's right, by the way, that had the ATF not done what it did, Congress would have changed the law. There was a movement afoot, the votes were there, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump, supported the change in the law. But the ATF acted, the Trump administration's ATF acted to ban bump stocks. And so Congress saw no need to proceed, even though most legal experts said the Supreme Court's going to declare this unconstitutional. It is simply a matter of constitutional and statutory interpretation. There's nothing radical about this at all. When the ATF said bump stocks are not machine guns, just because an event happened, it didn't change a bump stock. Bump stocks were not redesigned. Bump stocks were still bump stocks. They couldn't go from being not a machine gun to a machine gun because of a tragic event. It's statutory law 101. What's so crazy here is actually the three progressive justices essentially say, well, it looks like and operates in our mind like a machine gun, therefore it's a machine gun and should be banned. Never mind what the statutory definition says. The statutory definition says, and by the way, the statute was written in the 1930s. And the statute says one pull of a trigger releases multiple rounds. That's a machine gun. If your gun, you can pull the trigger once and it releases multiple rounds, that's a machine gun. That's not what a bump stock does. A bump stock just makes it very easy to pull the trigger multiple times rapidly. But the definition of a machine gun under the federal law says it's got to pull once, release multiple. That's not what a bump stock does. A bump stock only releases one bullet per pull of the trigger. It just makes it easy to pull the trigger multiple times. It's ridiculous, and the outrage should be that the progressives say, well, because it speeds up the rate of semi-automatic fire, who cares about the statutory definition? It looks like a machine gun to us. We feel like it's a machine gun. It's dangerous when the law can be changed not by changing it, but because your feelings change. That's tyranny. Freedom is binding Congress to the law and saying this is Congress's job, not our job. The irony here, the bottom line, honest irony of all of this is that the progressives in the United States who are outraged by the Supreme Court are outraged that the Supreme Court has now repeatedly said in the Dobbs case and now in the Cargill case, hey, this isn't our power. Congress has to do this. The progressives say the Supreme Court must be reined in for the audacity of saying we don't have this power. That's the progressive argument, that because the Supreme Court is saying this is a job for Congress, not us, the Supreme Court must be reined in and forced to take on powers under the Constitution that the Supreme Court says it doesn't have. That's what's happening here with all the progressive outrage about the Supreme Court. It's all about they want unelected judges to do the things Congress, the elected branch, should do. The people who complain that democracy is under attack don't want the democratic institutions to legislate. They want the unelected judges to legislate, and they're furious that the unelected judges are saying, hey, it's not our power.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Amazon for all your gifting needs.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Open Line Friday here at the Eric Erickson Show. 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. However, wait a little bit before you call because the call screener had to run his kid to gymnastics class. He'll be back in a minute. Dad duty calls. Now, while he's gone, I can play you this. So I really, in fact, let me make sure I have this right. I tell you this a lot, and I know it can sometimes fall on deaf ears, but I want you to see this. You need to see the visuals. I have taken today's show notes out from behind the paywall so every one of you can see it. Paid or unpaid, you can see it. If you text the word Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you will go to my Substack, and the very top post, show notes, brutal ads begin. Click it. I want you to see the video. I'm going to play for you this audio. The Trump campaign has released a new ad. It's for television and the internet. They're going to run this on TV, not just on the internet. It's a 1-minute ad, and all it is Joe Biden in his own words.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
She knows so long as she is denied, our freedom can never be secured. We'll never forget lying around and him lying around, actually.
It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
And it ends with Trump, Make America Great Again, 2024 logo, paid for by Donald Trump. All it is Joe Biden in his own words. That's it. So if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, click the very top link. I'm going to send you a text back. You can follow me on social media. I've got all the links there to follow me around. But the very first link is the show notes. Click through. You can see that. There's also one. You've probably heard of Pierre Poilievre in Canada. He's got a brutal ad against Justin Trudeau. It's a visual ad. It's designed for TV. It won't make any sense if I play it for you on radio. You need to see these two ads. The conservative ad game is on fire right now. Also on fire, Old Glory Bank, amazing bank. A buddy of mine yesterday, while I was on the show, texted me and said, my bank, I'm not going to say the bank's one of the massive banks in the country. He's got millions of dollars with him in multiple accounts. They're canceling his personal checking account, and they won't give him a reason why. Well, he's a conservative, and I think he bought some guns on his debit card or something, and now his account's getting canceled. That won't happen to you at Old Glory Bank. That's the reason Old Glory Bank was started, because these major banks will cancel conservatives. They monitor what you buy. If they don't like it, they will cancel your account. He's moving his accounts to Old Glory Bank. I told him, just do it online. Go to oldglorybank.com, and you can fill out the form. It takes like 5 minutes. You get your account. You can too, just like my buddy Paul. Go to oldglorybank.com. Move your account there. If you need an account for your kids, they have no fee checking and no CV savings. And they've made it possible to deposit cash at 88,000 retail locations around the country so your kids can deposit their babysitting money or whatever their odd job money is into their account. OldGloryBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. It is Open Line Friday if you want to call in. I think you can call right now, but I want to go back to the show notes because there's another piece of video I embedded today. And I'm going to play this one for you. It's an abridged clip of David Axelrod talking with Jake Tapper. at CNN from last night's show. Yesterday, of course, Donald Trump, by the way, happy birthday to Donald Trump. He went to the U.S. Capitol yesterday, and the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, I should say, made a big deal out of January 6th. They ran some web ads about January 6th and stuff. But it continues to be the Democrats' chief message, that democracy is under attack. Democracy is under attack. That's the Biden campaign message. It is very interesting to me. Again, I think it's worth Republicans repeating constantly that the Democrats say democracy is under attack, and yet they're attacking the Supreme Court for continuously saying the democratic institutions need to legislate, not the unelected judges. So they claim democracy is under attack, but their whole criticism with the Supreme Court is that it thinks Congress should do its job, not the Supreme Court doing Congress's job. But there's a larger issue here, and it is that most people don't actually care. This is Jake Tapper and David Axelrod. Well, it was Jake Tapper and David Axelrod. Let's see here. Where's the audio here? Well, I can't get it for some reason. Essentially, you know what? I know how to do it. Look at this. I can do the backup plan.
You know this. I'm the son of a Jewish refugee from Eastern Europe, and I so love this democracy, and I think this is a central concern. But I've also said, if you are talking about democracy over the dinner table, it's probably because you don't have to worry about the cost of the food on your dinner table. And I think that these campaigns are fought out on issues that are very close to the ground and close to people's lives. And I would think the messaging should address that. I think the people who are hanging out here, the people who need to be reached and motivated, are more motivated by those kinds of issues than they probably are by the issue of democracy.
David Axelrod, Joe Biden referred to him as I don't want to say that word on the radio, a Rick Pay. How about that? We'll use the Pig Latin, a Rick Pay. If you can figure out the Pig Latin for Rick Pay, that's what Joe Biden in the last few months has called David Axelrod. The reason Joe Biden has called David Axelrod that is because David Axelrod has been open about his criticisms of the Biden campaign operation. Now, this is somewhat repetitious for some of you who listen regularly to the program. And by the way, I love those of you who listen regularly. I do, and I'm not trying to bore those of you, but there are also a lot of people who are they're new and they don't have all the backstory. Here's the backstory. The Obama campaign did something the Biden campaign has not done, and that is win re-election for president of the United States. And you would think that the Biden campaign would listen to the people who ran a successful re-election campaign for president. The problem, however, is that the Biden team hates David Axelrod and hates the Obama team because they blame them for Donald Trump. Unfairly, I might add, but they blame them for Donald Trump. The reason the Biden team blames the Obama team for Donald Trump is because they believe Axelrod and others convinced Obama to go with Hillary Clinton, not with Joe Biden, for the presidency in 2016. And Hillary lost, Trump won, and had it been Joe Biden, he would have won. That's their thinking. So now along comes David Axelrod, and he's being very public and open that, guys, your messaging is a problem, and Biden might be too old. Now, it's not just David Axelrod. You should know, and again, I'm pushing you on the show notes today because there is so much important stuff in the show notes, including the fact that in Europe, the major European newspapers are all upset and concerned about Joe Biden. Here is, let me get these for you so that I make sure I have the right ones. Yes, this is the Spanish newspaper headline. Joe Biden has no goodbye in this G7 video, but heads to a paratrooper. The U.S. president walked away from the group during a demonstration of skydiving. The broadcast video making him look like the protagonist of another of his famous lapses. But he was manipulated. Joe Biden raises debate about his age and cognitive state after disorienting himself in G7 viral moment. That is from the Portuguese newspaper. This is from the French newspaper. Let's see. Concerns about Biden's cognitive state after Meloni has to assist him at G7. The images show the Italian prime minister taking the U.S. president by his arm so he does not walk away from the group of leaders. And then another one. This is another French newspaper. President of the United States preoccupies world with talk of cognitive abilities. Loose translation there on the fly. German newspaper. Joe Biden wanders away, must be saved by Italian premier. These are the newspapers of Europe. These are not the partisan newspapers of Europe. These are the primary newspapers in Spain and Portugal, in Italy, in France, in Germany. They're all talking about Joe Biden and his moments at the G7 where he seems confused and wandering. They're concerned about him too. And David Axelrod said as much. And Joe Biden labeled him the P word. And then David Axelrod had the audacity to come out and say, guys, maybe stop talking about democracy and start talking about kitchen table issues. Believe it or not, most Americans who have time to talk about democracy at the kitchen table don't have the grocery bills that most people do. And here's the thing we know now. There's more economic data out there, and it turns out that it's the swing states and conservative areas of the country that have been hit with higher grocery bills than blue areas of the country. The partisan progressive coastal enclaves where a lot of the progressive media leaders and Democrats live haven't had as many grocery fluctuations as the rest of the country. So they can sit around and talk about democracy, where the rest of us are worried about our grocery prices, worried about our gas bills. And so naturally, the Democrats have reached the point that everyone gets to when they don't particularly like the news of the day, and that is, well, the polling must be rigged. It's very funny. This is the first summer. This is the first summer since the summer of 2004. Y'all got to hear this one. Y'all got to hear this one. This is the first summer of a presidential election year since the summer of 2004 where the Democrats have not led the popular opinion polling of the summer. This is the first time that's happened since the summer of 2004. In every other presidential election season, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2020, even go back to 2000 with Bush v. Gore, in the summer, the Democrats were ahead in the polling. Go back to 96. Bill Clinton was ahead of Bob Dole in the summer. Go back to 92. Same thing. Go back, by the way, go back to 1988. Bush versus Dukakis. Dukakis, you pull up the public opinion polling in the summer of 1988. Dukakis was ahead in the summer. So this is really, there have only been two times going back to 1988 where the Democrats have not led the summer polling. And again, that's not indicative of the final election because Bush beat Dukakis, Bush beat Gore. Trump beat Clinton, even though the first time Bush versus Gore, Trump versus Clinton, they actually were behind in the national popular vote. It was the Electoral College. But the Democrats tend to lead in summer polling. This is the first election since Bush versus Kerry where the Democrats have not been ahead in the summer polling. And what is the Democratic response? Well, the polling's wrong. Political activists believe the polling is always wrong unless the polling tells them exactly what they want to hear. The Wall Street Journal now Vivian Salama has the story. Whether Virginia backs Donald Trump or Joe Biden shouldn't even be a discussion. The state hasn't backed a Republican for president since George W. Bush in 2004. But early polls showing Trump the presumptive Republican nominee cutting into the Democratic president's lead have served as a wake-up call for Virginia Democrats who acknowledge headwinds with voters dissatisfied by Biden's leadership. Republicans say that if Virginia is even remotely on the table for Trump, Biden is in serious trouble in traditional battleground states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Pause. Notice the Republicans are not saying that Trump is going to win Virginia. The odds of Trump winning Virginia are small. It's possible. It's not probable. Sarah Chamberlain, the president of the moderate Republican Mainstream Partnership. Quote, I think Virginia can be a real possibility. Northern Virginia is so Democratic that's where the numbers are, so I'm not there yet on Trump winning. The Trump team is doing the right thing. Let's see how it plays out. Possible, not probable. But the point of the Republicans quoted here, and of the outside researchers, is that if Virginia is actually as close as respected pollsters say, not fringe pollsters, Roanoke College, pretty good pollster in Virginia. If they're right and it's close, Biden is ahead or tied. If it's close in Virginia, it's probably not close in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. That's why the Democrats, Donald Trump made an insulting remark about Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a great place. It's where Miller Lite is made. Of course, it's a good place. Actually, Milwaukee, most people in Wisconsin use Milwaukee as the butt of jokes. Donald Trump insulting Milwaukee is probably going to win him the suburbs of Milwaukee. But the Democrats are amplifying the Donald Trump insulted Milwaukee. That's where the Republican convention is going to be. I'm not going to the Republican convention because I really don't want to go hang out in Milwaukee for the RNC unless I'm going to a Brewers game. According to a Roanoke College poll conducted in mid-May, Biden and Trump are tied 42%. Biden holds a 2-point lead against his rival when other candidates are added. A Fox News voter poll of registered voters conducted June to 4 found Biden and Trump tied in Virginia. In April, the Trump campaign offered a less bullish assessment, saying internal polling showed Biden with a 48% lead in Virginia to Trump's 44% in a head-to-head match. Not only is President Trump dominating in every traditional battleground state, but longtime blue states such as Minnesota, Virginia, and New Jersey are now in play, said the campaign at the time. Now, what's notable here is New Jersey. Remember, in 2022, the governor of New Jersey, or was it 2020, the governor of New Jersey almost lost his reelection bid to a Republican no one had ever heard of. No, that was an off-year election. I think it was 21. Almost lost his reelection bid, and Republicans picked up seats, including the Speaker of the House in New Jersey. No one had ever heard of the guy, and the Republicans won it. The fact that there is this broad voter dissatisfaction of Joe Biden and the economy tells you there are problems. There are problems. These problems for the Democrats have everything to do with Joe Biden and the economy. And the fact that the Democrats are talking about democracy under attack instead of your grocery bill, it's something that they caused, and so they don't want to acknowledge it. But by not acknowledging it and claiming they have a plan to fix it, they're alienating a lot of independent voters who are going to make the difference in this election. Now, some of you just need the difference between clean air and bad air in your house, and that's where the Eden Pure Thunderstorm comes in. If you go to EdenPureDeals.com and put in the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3, you can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms and save $200. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. They're a small air purifier. They trap the pollen and the dust on electrostatic plates, so you don't even need a filter subscription. You know, a lot of their competitors, you have to buy the air purifier, and then you have to pay for a filter every month. You don't with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. It uses electrostatic plates. I don't use it as an air purifier, though. I use it as an odor eliminator, and it shines. I've used it in rental cars where someone who had the car before me was smoking something. I've used it in hotel rooms, musty basements. I've got a friend who bought a house at a lake. The previous owners had smoked in the house, and it stunk. They used the Eden Pure in there. I have been in a hotel where they used it because there were fireplaces. It just works. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. You get 3 of them. Upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your RV, your travel bag, and they're small. You can hold it in your hand. I keep one in my travel bag. That's how small they are and lightweight they are. And they just work. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code ERIC3, ERICK3. Greetings, conversationalists. It's Eric Erickson here, Open Line Friday. The phone number 877-973-7425. You can call in if you like. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan, wherever you are. You're buying a building, you're building a building, you're expanding, and you need to buy franchises, or you need an equipment loan. First Liberty Building and Loan makes their own lending decisions and can move quick and wants a relationship with you. Go to firstlibertyga.com. Firstlibertyga.com. Now, let's see here. I want to go to Michael, starting the show. Michael, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Great.
So I have a question. What you were just talking about with the presidency, does that have a trickle-down so-called effect to the House and the Senate races?
It sure does. It used to not have as much, but the trickle-down effect. Most voters in this day and age, they don't split their vote. People used to split their vote a lot in the 80s and 90s, but now they don't as much. And so if Trump or Biden win, those voters are probably then voting Democrat down ballot, at least for the national or federal races, Senate and House, and that's really going to help. So there are a lot of the consensus building on the left and the right, Democrat and Republican, that if Trump wins the White House, the odds are the Republicans win the House. The one big issue is the Senate, because the way the Senate works, only a third of the Senate is elected at a time, and the Democrats are playing defense because several of those senators up for re-election are up for re-election in states that Donald Trump's probably going to win. Because, when you get elected in the Senate, you serve a 6-year term. So your first election, if it's in a presidential year, your next election is going to be an off year. And so some of these guys, they got elected in an off year that was bad for Donald Trump in 2018. Now they're up for re-election in a presidential year that's good for Donald Trump in their particular state. So Sherrod Brown, for example, in Ohio is endangered. Joe Manchin, of course, isn't running again in West Virginia. That's an automatic pickup for the GOP. John Tester in Minnesota is a big deal. And that's why Dave McCormick running as the Republican in the Senate in Pennsylvania is a big deal. He's a great candidate in a state that Trump possibly could win. Then, of course, you got Kerry Lake. Y'all in Arizona, I got to tell you, you got better alternatives to Kerry Lake there. Then there's the Nevada, the current Democrat. What is it, Jackie? What's her name? She's not a fantastic senator. She's probably the weakest link for the Democrats right now. And in that state, Donald Trump is like 5-6 points ahead, and Sam Brown is one. Sam Brown, we're hoping to get him to the gathering. He's a military hero, and he's running as the Republican in Nevada for the Senate. And those things do matter, and those votes do tend to trickle down. So if Donald Trump wins, the odds are the Republicans keep the House and expand their lead there. If Joe Biden wins, the odds are the Democrats win the House. But the Senate is actually in play because of Manchin seat, Tester seat, the Nevada and Arizona and Pennsylvania and Ohio races as well. Now, when we come back, we must move on to other things. I will take your phone calls, 877-973-7425. We must talk about how the Democrats have rearranged our lives around the very new religion that's taken place out there on the secular left. And really, people are going to jail for heresies. You may not realize that's what's happening, but wait till I tell you the latest jailing.